This lens cap costs over $1,000. This clearly is an extortionate price to pay for one of these things, especially when you remember that you can get a lens cap for under $5. But there's a good reason why this one costs $1,000. Maybe not a good reason, but a reason. Because if the cap costs this much, then how luxurious and expensive must the camera be that this sits on? Okay, this is going to take a little bit of explanation, so let's get into it. Until the 1980s, the richest man on the planet was the Sultan of Brunei. This dude has such an abundance of wealth that it's almost enough to make your brain melt. So let's put this into some context that we can all comprehend. Now, one of these statements is a lie, so let's see if you can work out which one it is. His 2 million square foot palace has 1,700 rooms, 5 swimming pools, an air-conditioned stable for his 200 horses, and 257 bathrooms. The guy has enough bathrooms to take a dump in a different toilet every day of the year for 8 months. He bought a £200 million double-decker plane and then spent $120 million kitting it out. One of these modifications was a gold wash basin. Obviously. His car collection is so huge that no one really knows the extent of what's actually in it. You name it, he's got it. And even some special order stuff that you can't even think of. But we do know that in the 90s, he accounted for 50% of all of Rolls-Royce's sales. That's one dude buying half of all the rollers made. And I'm pretty sure that a huge proportion of those he's never actually driven. He has 30 Bengal tigers in a private zoo, and some people have reported that this private zoo also contains highly trained cockatoos that can play basketball. He spends 20 grand getting his hair cut, flying his favourite barber out from England, first class. He paid his badminton coach $1.5 million. He has a net worth greater than Canon and Nikon combined. And which of these do you think was the lie? Well, if you said basketball playing cockatoos, then congratulations, because you're wrong again. I lied. All of these are true. And that is only scratching the surface of the mind-boggling amounts of money that this dude has and the wildly imaginative ways that he spends it. But what does all this have to do with a lens cap? Well, in 1996, it was the Sultan's birthday, and it was an important one, the big 5-0. I don't really have the details about the party, but what I like to imagine is that it was 2 weeks and £30 million worth of non-stop indulgence, dining on the best champagne and caviar that money can buy, with 3,000 guests including members of the royal family, polo matches, parades, firework displays, all topped off with a private performance from Michael Jackson. Oh no, wait, no, yeah, that is exactly what happened. Now, I don't know about you, but the only thing that I'm used to taking away from a party is a cracking hangover and an overwhelming sense of shame the next morning. But the Sultan, he had different ideas. Not content with the fact that he'd probably just given all of the attendees one of the most batshit crazy birthday do's that they've ever been to, he wanted to give his guests a gift as a way of saying, thanks for turning up. And what better way to immortalise a memory than with a photo taken with a camera? And which camera manufacturer jumps to mind when you think of luxury and pricey excellence? You can bet your sweet, poor ass that he went to Leica. If you don't know, Leica cameras are an extremely well-built and expensive luxury item that pretty much do the exact same thing as any other camera. But they're kind of like what Rolex is to watches. You don't buy a Rolex because you need to know what time it is. You buy one because it makes you feel good using it. The Sultan decided that the best parting gift would be a Leica M6. But this is a guy who reportedly once, whilst playing polo with Prince Charles, had his shoes delivered by helicopter to the palace field because he had accidentally left them inside. A regular M6 just isn't going to cut it with this man, even if they already cost upwards of $4 grand at the time. So he gave Leica a bell and he said, yeah, hello, I'd like to order some custom Leicas, please. Grab a pen because this is f***ing mental. Right, I'm going to have to stop us there and take a quick minute to talk about this week's sponsor, Audio. Audio is a music and sound effects licensing platform with thousands of tracks so you can find the right music for your next project. I used Audio for all the music and the sound effects in this video, and not only that, but Audio also allows you to download individual stems from a track. So if you find a song and you want the instrumental with no vocals, then you can. Audio also has a new feature that can save you a whole bunch of time, Link Match AI. If you found a song that you like on YouTube, TikTok, SoundCloud, etc., you can copy and paste the link into Link Match AI and it will scan the entire audio catalogue to find a track that sounds similar. Now I can stop concerning myself with the fact that AI can make a better picture than I can and use AI to my advantage. Audio are offering 70% off their Pro subscription for the first year, which gives you unlimited music, sound effects download, downloads, link match AI searches and stems, and all you need to do to get this is click the link in the description below and use the code GrainDead. Right, now back to the $1,000 lens cap. So what was this special order that the Sultan asked Leica to whip up? Firstly, let's have them 24 karat gold plated, because everyone knows that gold is fancy pants. And you're gonna need a lens to go with your camera, so throw in a 35mm Summilux 1.4. A lens that already costs $5,000, but naturally, let's have that gold plated as well. And when the Sultan said gold plated, he wasn't messing around. He requested that gold must be used wherever possible. Apparently even the screws are gold plated. Now, as crazy as a gold plated Leica sounds, it wasn't actually anything really new. Leica had already made a load of gold cameras before, and they have since. The Luxus 2 R6s, the King of Thailand had some whipped up. There's one to commemorate Oscar Barnack, the OG daddy of 35mm cameras, and probably a whole bunch more, including a silver Jubilee camera that the Sultan of Brunei had made 3 years before. The Sultan knew this and was probably thinking, I'm gonna have to spice this one up a little bit. So instead of the standard leatherette covering, let's have some red lizard, and I'm hoping that's just the name of the pattern and not the skin of this little guy, but at this point, like, who really knows? The whole thing was then covered in custom engravings like the royal emblem and messages to commemorate the party. The real power play though is having his date of birth stamped right next to the viewfinder, so every time you bring it up to your face to take a photo, you can't help but read it. That is just perfect. He wasn't done there though, oh no, because then he ordered the same again, but this time, ditch the gold, not quite precious enough. Let's have this second batch, platinum, with grey snakeskin covering. And that platinum camera was reserved for the extra special guests in a group of special guests from a group of select special people that went to the party. And just when you think it can't possibly get any more extravagant than that, lots of these cameras have 2 carat diamonds on them, just set right into the top plate. Remember, he's giving these away. Remember, these are a party gift. I struggled to find the exact number of how many of these he ordered, but considering that each camera has its own special serial code that is 3 digits long, it's probably safe to assume that it's in the hundreds. Apparently, around 500. Now, everyone knows that using a Leica not only makes you a far better photographer, but just a better person than everyone else in general. So having one of these opulent specimens must propel you to the upper echelon of humanity. But at what cost? Because of the scarcity of these things, records of sale prices are pretty few and far between. And like any high-ticket item, it depends on condition and specification, as well as how greedy the person selling it is and how hungry the person buying it is. Lots of the prices that I found are from cameras that sold around 10 years ago, and even then, prices started at around $35,000, which, you know, is very reasonable. It's almost silly not to get one at that price instead of, say, I don't know, like a down payment on a house or something. Can't take a photo with a house, can you? But more recently, there have been some finer examples, like this serial number 000, complete with diamond, which is up for $120,000. And that price is actually pretty tame when you start looking into the world of rare and desirable cameras. For instance, these cameras are mega cheap when you look at something like the Hasselblad space cameras. A 500C that has actually been in Earth's orbit sold for $280,000. Not one of the moon landing Hassies, obviously. They're still up there. Or maybe possibly in Stanley Kubrick's basement. Depends what you believe. And even they're pretty cheap in comparison when you looked at the aforementioned Luxus 2. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. That sold for a disappointing $620,000, which was a steal considering we don't know where the other 3 currently are. But even that camera is a pittance when you compare it to this thing, whipped up by Apple designers John Ive and Mark Newson, and then sold at a charity auction for $1.8 million. But then that's a deal when you compare it to this M3D, one of 4 customized by Leica for the photographer David Douglas Duncan. That one would have set you back $2.18 million. And if you're going to spend $2.18 million, you might as well spend a little bit extra, right? And instead, maybe get yourself a 1923 Leica 0 Series, a Leica prototype limited to around 20 made. One of these old farts sold in 2018 for $2.97 million. But then again, what's the point in having a 0 Series if it's not Oscar Barnack's personal camera? That's just a no-brainer if you've got a spare 15 million and fancy owning the most expensive camera ever sold. When you look at the prices of all these other cameras, well, I say cameras, it's mostly Leicas, the Sultan's really does seem cheap. But even so, the thought of actually paying up for one of these just makes my face turn inside out. But you got to appreciate the absurdity of the Sultan's flex for getting Leica to make them in the first place and then just giving them all away. So there you go, £1,000 lens cap. Is it worth it? Nah. But if you own one of these cameras and you've lost your lens cap, then that's the price you're gonna have to pay, because good luck finding another one. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to check out audio, you can use the link in the description below, and don't forget to use code GRAINDEAD for 70% off your first year of their pro subscription. I'm just gonna get a solid gold Zorky.